Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. There's an ISP that appears to have lied about their coverage area in order to lock out other providers from getting federal funds to build in their service area. We'll be right back and I'll show you that. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Broadband Deployment News. So this is pretty bad. I say appears to have, and I'm going to use the word allegedly because I've not seen this. I've seen the story, but I've not seen the actual emails. But it looks to be something that is unfortunate here. So as I read the story to you, you'll see what I'm talking about. So we've got ISP admits lying to FCC about size of network to block funding to rivals. So Ryan Grewell, who runs a small wireless internet service provider in Ohio, last month received an email that confirmed some of his worst suspicions about cable companies. Grewell, founder and general manager of Smartway Communications, had heard from some of his customers that the FCC's new broadband map falsely claimed that fiber internet service was available at their homes from another company called Jefferson County Cable. Those customer reports spurred Grewell to submit a number of challenges to the FCC in an attempt to correct errors in Smartway's service area. And this, by the way, is in Ars Technica. So I've linked to this story and a couple of other links in the description of this video. One of Grewell's challenges elicited a response from Jefferson County Cable executive Bob Loveridge, who apparently thought Grewell was a resident at the challenged address rather than a competitor. "You challenge that we do not have service at your residence, and indeed we don't today," Loveridge wrote in a January 9 email that Grewell shared with Ars. "With our huge investment in upgrading our service to provide XGPON, we reported to the BDC, or the Broadband Data Collection, that we have service at your residence so that they would not allocate additional broadband expansion money for over the top of our private investment in our plant." So basically, kind of the background here is that internet service providers right now, and this would have been the prior broadband data collection period, but internet providers like this cable company, Jefferson County Cable, were required to report to the FCC every single broadband serviceable location where they provide service, the maximum advertised upload speed and download speed, whether they are less than 100 milliseconds latency, and a few other things. So the type of service it is it fiber, is it cable, is it DSL, is it wireless, those kinds of things. So they have to report that. And that's being reported on top of what's called the Broadband Data Collection Fabric. That's a fabric of broadband serviceable locations that CostQuest created for the FCC last year and has been challenged and updated somewhat. And right now there's a new broadband fabric that broadband service providers are once again having to go in and upload their serviceable locations. But this would have been something that would have taken place in the last broadband data collection process. So that was the time between June and September or so when broadband providers were saying, hey, as of the end of June, that's when that was supposed to be, as of the end of June, we provide broadband service in all of these areas, and here's, again, the speeds that we provide, the type of service it is the latency less than 100 milliseconds. So they had to upload that on top of the fabric. And that produced the FCC broadband map, which came out in mid-November. And then everybody could go look and see, okay, well, who are the broadband providers in my area? What kind of service do they provide? Well, there's some people that looked at the map that were in this area and they said, wait a minute, this says I can have access to fiber service here, and I don't as far as I know. So they reached out to this wireless service provider that may have been a provider for them and that was in the area and said, hey, do you know about this? So the wireless service provider, Smartway, went in and said, wait a minute, and they challenged these locations, and they got a response back from the cable company that said, oh yeah, we said we provide fiber there, we really don't, but we didn't want anybody to get federal funds and then overbuild us. So they characterize that as lying, and it sure sounds like it if that's really what happened. So let's see here. So speaking to Ars, Grewell said the cable company happened to just say the quiet part out loud. He called it a blatant attempt at blocking anyone else from getting funding in an area they intended to serve, or they intend to serve, I should say. So the cable company could be saying, hey, we intend to serve this area in the future. And they're saying with XGS-PON, although there's nothing on their website about that, I'll show in a minute here, about that coming, but they're claiming they made some kind of investment in this area already. But that shouldn't matter, and that doesn't matter. It should not, and it does not. It's not clear when Jefferson County plans to serve the area. Program rules did not allow ISPs to claim future coverage in their submission, in their map submission. So as I said, for that round of broadband data collection, that was the initial round for the new broadband map, the very first time that broadband service providers were required to provide each and every address where they provided service versus the old FCC collection where it was by census block. And if you served one address in a census block, you would pick an address that you served, and you would pick most likely the highest speed that you serve. So you could, if you were an ISP and let's say you were providing DSL, you might pick a home on in one part of the census block that could get maybe, I don't know, 20 megabits per second down or 30 megabits per second down, whereas other locations in that census block might not be served by you at all, or they might get slower speeds because they were further away from your head end or your central office, I should say. So anyway, so that's the way it was done before. And then this first inaugural broadband map was based on this collection period between June and September. If I recall, I think it was the end of June to September 1st. So they were supposed to report where they actually provided service, where somebody could call them and say, hey, I would like internet, and then you could get out there within like 10 days and install it. Those were the only addresses that were supposed to be reported by the internet service provider that would appear on the broadband map. But apparently they were saying, well, we're investing over here and we plan on providing service over here. So they decided to count all of those locations. You can't do that. Jefferson County Cable ultimately admitted to the FCC that it had filed incorrect data and was required to submit a correction. The challenge that the ISP conceded was for one address, on State Route 43 in Bergholz, Ohio. The town is not one of the coverage areas listed on Jefferson County Cable's website. So they don't provide service there yet at all. They don't even provide cable modem service there, it sounds like. While checking the FCC broadband map today, we confirmed that the address is no longer listed as having Jefferson County Cable service, but that one fix alone wouldn't prevent the company's grant blocking strategy from working because the FCC map still lists the company as serving the address right next door and others on the same road. Mentions here false data hurts ISPs seeking grants. So false broadband data could hurt SmartWay directly because the ISP plans to apply for grants to upgrade its network. There have been over 1 million challenges submitted to the FCC nationwide, and it's unknown how many mistakes are on the map overall. Now, as I talk about some of these other things we're going to mention here, we got to remember that there's two kinds of challenges, and most of them, and these huge numbers of addresses that are being challenged are areas that are, let's say, not on the map at all. So it's an area where a state or community or even an internet service provider might say, hey, you don't have these listed as locations that are supposed to get broadband, and yet they are. So a community might say, we've got this whole section of town here that's supposed to get broadband, but they're not in the fabric. Or you might have an ISP that says, hey, we're actually serving this area, or we're planning on serving this area, and they're not on the map. Now, that's not about whether they service the area. That's about those locations should be on the map. So that would be a fabric challenge change. But when the broadband map came out, you could challenge that as well. A consumer could challenge that, or you could challenge, wait a minute, it says there's service here and there's not, because that's more about availability than whether that location is supposed to get broadband. It's like that's saying that location does have broadband, and you'd be challenging that it does not. Or you'd be challenging that, okay, it has broadband service, it has fixed wireless service, but it says I'm supposed to get fiber. That would be a challenge as well. The new FCC map is supposed to show exactly which homes and businesses have access to internet service and what types of service are available at each address. Using that data, the U.S. government and states will decide how to allocate federal funding to projects that fill in broadband availability gaps. And that's specifically for this new map that's going to be coming out in, let's say, May or so. And all of that data is specifically for the BEAD program and how much each state is going to get, because that's going to determine their percentage of unserved areas compared to all of the unserved areas throughout the country. So that is very important. But the maps rely on internet service providers to report where they offer service and are rife with errors that show ISPs claiming to serve more homes than they actually do. Now here I think they're mixing up what's going on. So it says Nevada officials said they found more than 20,000 mistakes in their state alone. I don't think they're talking about 20,000 mistakes about internet service providers saying they provide service in an area. I think they're talking about fabric challenges there, meaning that Nevada found 20,000 missing locations, let's say, that are not even on the map. That would be my guess. Vermont officials said the map is missing or incorrectly lists the location right? The location of over 60,000 broadband serviceable locations. So in other words, they were saying there were over 60,000 locations that were not on the map that should have broadband. It's not that they're on the map and incorrectly stating that there's broadband service there when it's not. That's not what that means. They're just not on the map. Now, it's also known that there could be challenges that were made to the broadband fabric that did not make it into the map because you were able to challenge the fabric up until before the map, right before the map was submitted, people were challenging, and then after the map was submitted. So it's very likely that these 60,000 broadband serviceable locations that are not on the current map will be on the new map, assuming that they're corroborated by the FCC, because the challenge process was taking place that whole time. So it's very possible that if the state of Nevada or the state of Vermont challenged all these locations, it's very possible that there were others that were challenging that as well, including internet service providers that might have said, wait a minute, these areas, we actually provide service here, they should be on the map. So a lot of that, I wouldn't, as I read this story, I don't believe that there's 20,000 and 60,000 locations where ISPs are fudging the numbers. I think these were location challenges, and it's very possible that they were settled or challenged prior to the, or after the map came out. In other words, after the map came out, the challenges were all looked at and that they're being responded to right now. So they will be in the next map. We'll have to see. Let's see. Rewell said he submitted about a dozen challenges in late November. So there you go. So he submitted a dozen challenges in late November. That's after the map came out. So he was able to look at the map and see those challenges. So those would be for areas. He's challenging areas that say they have broadband. So they're broadband serviceable locations. They were on the fabric, but this company, this cable company, said that they provided service when they do not. So he's challenged about a dozen of those, most of which pertain to addresses purportedly served by Jefferson County Cable. He said he filed the challenges in areas that I knew there was no fiber to the home whatsoever. Jefferson County Cable withdrew its coverage claim at that one address referenced in Leverage's email after Grewell's challenge. He hasn't received responses for any of the other addresses he challenged. And then here it mentions another shady coverage claim. This is talking about, says the challenge process was criticized in an op-ed 2 weeks ago by Christopher Mitchell, director of the Institute for Local Self-Reliance's Community Broadband Network Initiative. Mitchell filed a challenge for his own home in St. Paul, Minnesota. He wrote, for instance, a fixed wireless provider told the FCC it offered my home symmetrical gigabit, but their website told me I could pay hundreds of dollars for 2 or 3 megabits per second. I asked for the service, and when I got no response, I filed a challenge. We'll see how it goes. Even if I succeed, the map will likely still reflect the ISP telling the FCC that it would offer symmetrical gigabit to my neighbors. So that is a problem because he's filing it just for his home, and he's got neighbors that he knows are not able to get that service as well. Now, a salesperson for the wireless provider, Nextera Communications, contacted Mitchell this week and told him that gigabit service would cost $1,000 a month on a 3-year contract and probably require additional build-out of our backhaul. The email makes it clear the service is targeted at businesses and not residences. So he's obviously in a residential address, and he looked on the map and it said he can get gigabit service, and he can if he were to pay $1,000 a month, get a 3-year contract, and it would require additional build-out. So that is not supposed to be on the map. The only thing that's supposed to be on the map is infrastructure that's already there, and you can call the service provider and get that installed with a normal installation without additional setup fees, without additional fees to require additional build-out or backhaul, that kind of thing. So it should be just a standard service that you can buy. He says, I've not heard anything from the FCC about the challenge. The FCC provided us with a statement a day after the article was published, their article that said, we take these type of allegations very seriously and refer this matter to our Enforcement Bureau. We cannot comment further while that investigation is pending. So it was asked, they were trying to find out if, and it's a great question, is are these ISPs going to be held accountable for the fact that they seem to be trying to say they provide, I shouldn't say seem to be, they are saying they're providing service in areas where they're not providing service. And certainly if they're doing that purposely, can they be held accountable? And the FCC says they are taking that seriously, and that's being referred to the Enforcement Bureau, and that can mean some hefty fines if these ISPs are found to be doing that. So the FCC is having to take all of this information into account, these challenges, as they prepare for this next FCC map. So I looked at this. I'm going to make that bigger, sorry. I looked at the Jefferson County Cable website. You can see here, I went to their page. All of these locations that they serve have the same thing for high-speed internet. So I drop down here and I see, this is what they say. They offer a 24/7 tech support, true broadband high-speed internet service, $35 install fee, enhance your daily life. And then this, I don't understand this. If you only need internet service, please add $10 a month. So I don't know what that means. Maybe the pricing they're talking about here would be with a video bundle. So if you wanted the internet by itself, instead of, for example, here's 10 meg down, instead of 4405, it could be 5405, maybe, if you're just getting internet, if you're not getting cable TV from them. That must be what that means. And then they've got a 25 meg plan for $49.05, or I guess that would be $59.05 if you're just getting internet. And then $59.05 for 100 by 20. No, wait a minute, sorry. 25 is $49.05. 50 is $59.05, and then 100 by 20 is $76.95, and you can add $10 to any of those if you're just getting internet. So I'm assuming these are bundle prices. And then it says unlimited data, I guess, although you cannot be abusive. And then they say, this is kind of a repeat of that, so I think they just have the same text down here. So anyway, so they got these 4 different plans. So this 10 meg down is not considered broadband. You've got your 25 meg, which is right at the limit of what they consider broadband. And then they say they can offer 50 meg and then 100 by 20. That is the limit for what's considered underserved. So you're considered unserved, no broadband if you're less than 25 by 3. You're considered underserved if you're less than 100 by 20. So, on this 100 by 20 plan, are they actually meeting that? What do the speed tests look like? Usually cable operators will give people more than what they're advertising so that people don't complain. So if they run a speed test, they're not complaining about the fact that, hey, you say I got 100 by 20 and I'm really only getting like 70. So I don't know if they're doing that or if they're, where they are here. But so it's really odd that, they've got service in their service area that qualifies for served. So they're certainly, if they're saying they can offer 100 by 20, then most likely they're easily able to offer over 25 by 3. Again, the minimum broadband. So in those areas, nobody should be able to get federal funds to overbuild them. But what they're doing, what they're claiming they did was in other areas where they're not providing service, that they've done some kind of infrastructure build out for XGS-PON. I'm assuming to be able to provide fiber to the home in those areas, or maybe to upgrade their cable. Well, if they're doing XGS-PON, it's got to be fiber. So, but you cannot count that, as the article said. You cannot say what you're going to be doing. That does not count as far as the broadband map goes. In fact, right now, internet service providers, it started on like very beginning of January, and they go out until the beginning of March. They are now uploading their most recent broadband availability. So they're taking the most recent fabric that came out at the end of December, available to them in early January. They're going to that most recent fabric with the broadband service for locations, and they are overlaying on top of that the areas where they serve. And that has to be effective December 31st, 2022. It cannot be anything after that date. So if they are going to be flipping the switch and turning something on tomorrow, February, what is today? Is the 6th, February 7th. So if they're ready to go February 7th with that new broadband service, that cannot be on the map because it was supposed to be effective as of December 31st. And certainly there's nothing on this company's site about new fiber coming and checking on interest from customers or anything like that. So there's no information about when this might be available. So you're not supposed to do that. I looked at the SmartWay site. So again, this is a wireless internet service provider, and what they're offering plans. Again, these are, this is a WISP. Now, if this service is licensed, then anywhere that they cover is also not eligible for broadband funds from the federal government. So if you look at this, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can all see it. So they've got their standard package, 25 by 5, so that meets the minimum broadband requirement. Then they've got a streaming package, 35 by 7, and then they've got 50 by 10. So this is fixed wireless. And again, if this is all licensed spectrum, or even a combination of licensed and unlicensed, then that is supposed to be considered reliable broadband service according to the Notice of Funding Opportunity for BEAD. And therefore, there should not be any federal funds going to that location. Certainly, that would be considered overbuilding. So you're only supposed to be providing those funds to areas that are less than 25 by 3 or less than 100 by 20. It's considered unserved. I guess that could be a situation where they do unserved locations first, now that I think about it, because this would still be considered unserved. So eventually, what's going to happen is everybody's going to try to get all of their served locations, anything less than 25 by 3, covered. And then if there's money left over, they're going to start looking at the underserved locations that are less than 100 by 20. So then I guess some funds could go here and overbuild an area like this if there's nobody that's providing over 100 by 20 in that area. And again, it's questionable for the cable company in their service area whether they do. They're claiming that. That's the max. They're claiming that as their maximum download and upload speed. So the question then becomes, again, what is reality? And that's where it's going to be up to local stakeholders and consumers in the area to say, hey, they're saying we're getting 100 by 20 and we're not, because that's, again, at that cusp of underserved locations that could potentially get funding in the future. So, and these guys, they offer, this is their homepage, but they offer quite a few locations. If you look in here, you can see looks like 4 different counties and different cities there. So it's a good side wireless provider. So I'm not sure if it's licensed or unlicensed, but again, they've got a reason to complain because of what this cable company has said that they're doing there. So it sounds like maybe SmartWay is wanting to get some funds. So somebody could come in and overbuild them eventually for the underserved areas, but it sounds like they're wanting to get some funds maybe to improve their infrastructure to be able to do gigabit speeds. This cable company doing this prevents that because if the FCC looks at that and says, oh, wait a minute, there's already fiber here, and I'm assuming, I don't know what speeds, it didn't say what speed fiber this Jefferson County said they offered, but most likely over 100, something over 100 by 20 is what they said. So that would prevent money from being dispersed there. So that's why this wireless company has a problem with that, as they should. So, and then you got another wireless provider that was not playing fair, that was saying they offer gigabit internet, and yeah, you can get it, but you got to pay a boatload of money. And it sounds like other than that, it's pretty slow, where that one Christopher Mitchell's address is right there. So thanks for joining me. I think we can see that there are some issues. We knew there were issues with the fabric. We knew there were issues with going to be with the broadband map, and some ISPs not doing the right thing. Okay, I think for the most part, most internet service providers are going to be doing the right thing, because if there's an internet service provider there, most likely, if it's a cable operator, certainly if it's a fiber operator, most of the time they can offer speeds well over 100 by 20. There are some smaller operators like this one that apparently has not upgraded their cable plant, or if they have, they're just not offering the kind of speeds they could offer that are not playing fair. And then there's some wireless providers, I guess, and certainly there's some DSL providers not doing the right thing. But I think the vast majority of operators are hopefully going to be doing the right thing. But we do have some of these cases that need to be looked at. And then there's the separate case, again, a separate case of these tens of thousands of addresses that keep being referenced in these articles that, number one, don't apply to the ISPs. This is about service locations, broadband serviceable locations, and not availability. And then number two, a lot of those errors have been fixed already and are in the process of being fixed and will be reflected on the map in the future. There'll still be missing locations and there'll still be some errors, but I think the vast majority of those are going to be fixed. I guess we'll have to see, but that's just the way things are working. It just takes time to get through that. Thanks for joining me. If this was helpful, if you give me a like on the video. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and click the subscribe button, click the little bell to be notified when I'm live, and I will see you next time for Broadband Deployment News. Actually, I'll see you tomorrow for Tech Tuesday for a topic at that point at 3 o'clock live. I will be live for some topic on Tech Tuesday. I haven't decided what yet, but I'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.